shit, yeah, they bread stank. Walk up in the club, dripping like I'm fresh paint. I can see through the facade like an...
What's going on, fight fans? It's another great day when you love MMA. Welcome back to Mad Matty Fight Talk. Mad Matty once again with Crazy Chris, and we're doing our second annual end of the year recap for 2022, specifically pertaining to the UFC, who's had a big year, a lot of belt changes, a lot of champion changes. I mean, big fights, big events, big arenas. We're getting back to the old ways. We're going to be doing the top 5 fights, top 5 finishes, and top 5 fighters of 2022. And to be completely honest, when I was going down my list to make this, it was pretty hard to pick some of these. And some of the people I didn't add on here really deserved to be on here. But, you know, this is my top 5. It's his top 5. And just so you guys remember, we don't go over this. We just write down who we think did what, and we just meet here and we talk about it. So let's kick it off with the top 5 fights of the year. I'll let you start off with number 5 on your list.
Top 5 fights of the year. I got to go with the championship belt that just got swapped over in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Absolute fucking bang session these guys put on.
That's your number 5?
It's my number 5, believe it or not.
Right.
I put it on there just because it was such a good comeback by, you know, Alex Pereira, and Israel Adesanya went in there looking sharper than ever. And you know, just the way that the whole fight ended, I thought it was a great fight, and I loved every bit of it.
That's a solid pick. I mean, that was a big moment for Alex Pereira, who's had a really big 2022. I'm going to go for my number 5. I had Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett. I thought that was one hell of a fight in front of a live audience for UFC Fight Night down in Austin, Texas. Those guys went back and forth, and it was very razor sharp. I thought that was a really excellent fight, so I had to throw there for number 5.
What a great fight. That was such a great fight. I honestly didn't even think about that making this list, but that's a well-deserved number 5. Number 4, I got Ciryl Gane versus Tuivasa, the Shui master. I mean, what a performance by Ciryl Gane, and it was just a great fight to watch. You know, I just remember watching that fight and just having butterflies the whole time. These guys were coming and knock each other's heads off. What a great performance again by Ciryl Gane. And, you know, Tuivasa had such a phenomenal, you know, win streak going into that fight. So it was a great performance from both guys. Unfortunately, Ciryl Gane got the job done, but it was a phenomenal fight. I loved every bit of it. That's why it's on my number 4.
Well, that was a good performance. And Tuivasa dropped Ciryl Gane hard and made him have to come back and show some heart and win that fight. I really enjoyed that fight. That's a good number 4. For me, number 4, I got Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan. I thought that was a really good fight because you had O'Malley, who's a big time fan favorite, ranked number 12, taking on the number 1 contender, backing up what he said he was going to do. I mean, I didn't think he got the decision, but regardless of who won the fight, it was a great fight. Both guys were hurting each other, and you saw all aspects of MMA in that fight.
Great fight. Great pick. That was your number 4?
Yeah.
Phenomenal number 4 pick. Number 3, I got Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns. What a fucking bang sesh. These guys put on top-notch performances. I mean, Khamzat dropped him. Burns dropped him. I mean, it was such a good fight. I wanted 10 rounds of it. I wanted more than 3. It was such a great fight. And that's why it's at my number 3. Such a phenomenal fight. Both of those guys deserved it.
Gilbert Burns really stepped up to the plate, putting his high ranking on the line in that fight. But that's
shows his character. You know, it shows his character. He's willing to fight anybody at any time.
That is definitely one of the best fights of 2022. For my number 3, I had Francis Ngannou taking on Ciryl Gane, 2 former training partners for the heavyweight championship. I thought this was an excellent fight because our predictions going into this was it was going to be power versus speed, and it turned out to be wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. It was an unbelievable flip of the script, and I thought Ngannou showed real growth in that fight. And it was for the championship. So that was my number 3. And real quick, to go into my number 2, I actually had Khamzat Chimaev taking on Gilbert Burns. That's my number 2 fight of 2022. I thought that was an unbelievable performance on both sides. Gilbert landed some bombs. Khamzat showed toughness and showed what he was really made of against a high-ranking opponent. It was just a great fight all around.
It was one of those fights where just like, you know, as a fan, it got me as a fan who's been in the game for over 10 years now, watching these fights basically growing up. I mean, it got me on the edge of my seat, man. And that doesn't happen every fight card. It doesn't happen every fight, you know? So what a great performance again. Those guys deserved it.
Yeah, that's my number 2. So who do you have?
I have my number 2 as Davidson Figueredo versus Brandon Moreno, number 3. I mean, these guys, I could watch them fight every fucking week, man. These guys, I just love the way their dance partners are. It's an entertaining fight every time. And like, again, it's one of those fights where who's winning this round, who's winning that. You don't know. You don't even know. You're holding your hand, like who's going to get their arm raised. And that was such a good performance by both men. And Figueredo coming back to win the belt back. I mean, how can you not love that?
That matchup is just a matchup made in heaven. Those two guys are just made to put on performances. It's insane. I mean, I feel like Davis and Figueroa though is getting better as their fights go on. But regardless, the fights that they've had besides the second one and three were really good fights.
Let me go into my number 1 real quick because I too had Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Pewter Yan as my number 1 pick because that was such a close fight. And for me being a Sean O'Malley fan, I loved every bit of that shit. I just loved that fight. It was a great performance by Sugar. And it was a way for him to introduce himself to the top 10. I mean, this guy is a guy who was in question for a long time because he was fighting lower class, let's be honest, lower levels than him. And the way he's performing against those guys showed that he can do the same thing against the number 1 ranked guy in that division. What a great fight by Pewter Yan as well, who made it a dirty boxing match. And these guys are throwing bombs left and right. Love that fight. Great fight. It's my number 1. Fucking go Sugar Show,
Yeah,
baby.
I thought that was a great performance by Sean O'Malley because he was hurting Jan, who almost never he's a hard guy to hit.
Never gets hurt.
Really
never gets hurt. Let's be
great
real.
control, great distance, and O'Malley's big for that division. But O'Malley really stepped up, and he did a great job in 2022. I think he's 2-0 this year. For my number 1 pick, I thought this was by far the best fight of the year, and there's a lot of good fights, but this was a non-title 5-round fight between Arman Sarukian versus Mateusz Gamrot. That to me was by far the best fight of the year. The pace that those guys fought at, the grappling exchanges, the submission attempts, the striking, getting dropped, takedowns. There was every aspect on the highest, fastest level at 155. That to me was one of the best fights I've ever seen ever in the UFC. And
how do you not like Arman and Gamrot? Those guys are just warriors. You just gotta. I mean, their matchup was insane. It was insane. You could see the grittiness and the toughness, but also the skill that it took to keep
high
up
level,
in that 5-round fight.
heavy endurance. Like most guys would drown under pressure like that in the 5th round, or the 4th, 5th round. Just an unbelievable fight. So those are our top 5 fights of the year. Now we're gonna jump right into the top 5 finishes of the year. Now, fights are one thing, but these are the guys who really set the tone with either a knockout or submission. So I'm going to kick it right off. In my number 5 spot, I have Roman Dolidze TKOing Jack Hermanson. Now, this just happened, I think, 1 or 2 fight cards ago.
Yeah.
That dude put him in a calf slicer face down, and Jack Hermanson literally had no way of getting out of that. No way of defending himself, really, other than just hoping to God the ref stops the fight. If that was in the streets,
that was on like a 2 weeks notice or a 10-day notice or something.
2-week notice. Derek Brunson pulled out. Dolidze steps in, and it was a decent fight at first. It was very feeling each other out, but once it got to the ground and Dolidze took his back and put him in that calf slicer, that was one of the most impressive TKOs I've seen in a long time.
Such a great fight, great performance. I mean, absolutely. All right, guys. So I got my number 5 as Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, the power that Pavlovich came in with that fight to lay him out. I mean, he dropped him with a jab. Good Lord. I'd hate to see a right hand connect cleanly. Like, just that guy's so impressive to me. And I kind of had him going into that fight. It was a big toss up. Tuivasa is a big guy. He loves to throw big leather. But I mean, under 2 minutes, and he completely demolished him.
That guy
deserves a number 5 spot.
He carries some bombs, and he did some serious damage. It took 50 seconds or less, and he absolutely fucked Tuivasa's face up.
If I'm not mistaken, it was like 53 seconds or 1:03 seconds. It was.
But if you look at it, under 2 minutes. If you look at it, it looked like he was been through a 3-round fight after he got done with him. So that was just crazy.
That was crazy.
Number 4, I'm gonna go with Jared Cannonier KOing Derek Brunson with nasty ground elbows. Not only because it was a great KO and he absolutely put him unconscious, but he was losing that fight. He wasn't impressive in that fight. And he flipped the switch, turned it around, caught Brunson, got it to the ground, and the elbows were just ridiculous. So that's what I got for number 4.
My number 4 comes in back at the very light of the division, the 125 bracket, with Brandon Moreno finishing Kai Kara France with a body kick and coming in with those hands to finish with a TKO. First of all, hats off to Kai Kara France, such a warrior. Guy's been through the best of the best in the division, but Brandon Moreno came in like a lightning bolt, man. That guy was really on top of his stuff in the second round and was making, and he was pulling away, and then boom, that body kick came in and just Kai folded, and you never see Kai
It was
fold to
a
anything. So
it was a really good fight until that. Brandon Moreno, like that was impressive. I mean, that was definitely a good finish, and that's for the interim title. So Kai Kara France was on a run until that, but that body kick, man, was just lethal.
it
I
was
did
just
not expect
nasty,
that. Yeah,
just nasty. You know,
go ahead and hit your number 3 real quick.
yeah. Or, I mean, my number 3 is Edwards beating Usman for the title. What a comeback! What a head kick! What a finish, man! And I mean, you're talking about somebody who was saying that was projected to beat GSP as the go to the weight class, projected to be the pound for pound king.
I
I
believe he
mean,
was on a 19 fight win streak.
running laps around the division and beating Edwards cleanly through that fight until you give Edwards the last minute, one perfectly placed head kick later. And I mean, he shut the fucking lights out on Usman. So I
Yeah,
had to put him in there at number 3. Well deserved. What a KO. What a great job by the corner team. Nice finish.
that was probably the greatest come from behind victory. And you know what? We saw a lot
One
of
of them,
those.
at least.
There
Yeah.
was 3 of them this year, and that was the best one to me because it put the lights out cold. I'm gonna jump into my number 3. It goes down in the lightweight division. I got Islam Makhachev submitting Charles Oliveira to win the lightweight belt. And the reason I picked this, it's not that the finish was super amazing. It's the fact that he stopped a guy who was absolutely running through the top 3, top 5 of that division. Charles was dropping guys and finishing them. Charles is a dangerous dude, and Islam backed up everything he said by coming in there. Not only did he drop Charles, as soon as he put that arm triangle in and really cinched it in, and that's a high level
I mean,
jiu-jitsu
how
guy,
do you
just immediately tapping out.
exactly? How do you tap out a extreme black belt, the most submission wins in UFC history? I mean, what a performance by
He
Islam
said he was
Makhachev.
going to do that. He wanted to beat him at his own game. It's just unbelievably impressive, and in the second round. So
It was incredible. It was
that's my
incredible to
number
watch.
3.
My number 2, I have Marlon Chito Vera putting the lights out on Dominic Cruz with a nasty head kick that broke his nose. I mean, good Lord, if you saw his nose, it was planted on the other side of his face after that head kick. Also, Dominic was winning all 4 of those rounds on the judges' scorecards, or 3-1 at least on the judge. I was watching that fight live and I was like, damn, Dominic's gonna get his hand raised after this. Chito just lost his ranking. And boom, that head kick came in again in the 4th round, put Dominic out cold. And I haven't seen Dominic go out cold like that. It was nasty, man. And you got to give Chito his props because he's been on a vicious run.
Yeah, big main event. I mean, the only reason I didn't throw that in my top 5, or it's in the top 10, but it's a main event finish, but it's also Dominic Cruz is a little bit older to me. He fought really impressively in that fight. So, I mean, I'm not surprised
But,
that
I mean,
Cheeto finished
I
him.
could see that. That's exactly why I didn't put any of the Frankie Edgar finishes in there. But Dominic is a different fighter. It's not like his chin's known to be glass, and he was winning that fight pretty
Yeah,
decisively.
that's definitely a top knockout of the year.
You got to give it off to Chito Vera. I mean, he broke his nose. Like, what else can you do?
My number 2 of the top 5, I'm going with Alex Pereira TKOing Izzy Adesanya because what an impressive win for Alex to come in and defeat once like the Usman and Leon fight, the most dominant middleweight champion we've seen since Anderson Silva. These guys were on the verge of breaking records, and Alex comes in there losing the fight and just gets great coaching in his corner and went to work on Izzy, stopping him, getting the belt, and now he's the new champion. I thought that was unbelievable. So that's my number 2. And real quick, before we jump into number 1, I'm going to go ahead real quick because I had Leon Edwards knocking out Kamaru Usman. That's my number 1 pick for finishes because, like you said, it's a title fight. He was losing clearly. There is no way a decision was going to go to him. That dude, and what's even more impressive is that he looked tired and that he was down and out. He looked down and out. 3 through 5 when he was in the corner, it looked like he was going to give up. And then he ended up knocking him out with probably the best head kick.
That's why you gotta fight to the finish. You don't sit on your breaks and you don't try to cruise through the last round, you always got to be worried about that. And again, what a great job by his cornerman pumping him up for that 5th round. Great job. Now, I'm going to go into my number one, and my number one is Alex Pereira versus Sean Strickland. What a KO. What a knockout. And I mean, Sean was on an 8 fight winning streak at that point, beating all the guys in the top 10, pretty much on his way to a title shot. And then, Potano comes in there and just shuts the lights out. What a left hook. What a knockout. And we're talking about a pretty durable and tough guy. Sean Strickland is known for being a gym rat and sparring all the time. And for, Poatan to go in there and knock him out with that nasty left hook was just incredible to see.
It was impressive to see a non-ring guy. I mean, the guy's a world champion kickboxer. Go in there and do what he can do.
But MMA is a different game, you know what I'm saying? And just
I didn't think it was smart of Sean Strickland to try and box somebody like that. I thought that was insane. And Alex Pereira's a big motherfucker, dude. He makes these guys look small. Because what I noticed when Sean Strickland fought Cannonier in this last main event is Strickland's actually a pretty big guy himself. But he was dwarfed in that fight, and you saw the power. So there you have it. Top 5 finishes of 2022. Like always, hit us in the comments. We want to know what you guys think, if you agree or who you guys got. But let's step into the top 5 fighters of the year. These are guys, how you can explain who you pick and why. But these are guys we thought had just one hell of a year. So I'll let you jump into your number 5.
My number 5 is Alex Pereira. I mean, how can you not come in from, being a kickboxing double world champion, 2 different weight classes, and come in undefeated 4-0 in the UFC, get a title shot, win the title shot, beat Israel Adesanya for a 3rd time in a different sport. I mean, what an incredible year. He definitely earns the top 5.
Alex Pereira had a phenomenal 2022. I mean, he's had a great UFC career so far. So I can't disagree with that at all. I think that guy did phenomenal this year. I thought Izzy was going to win that fight, and Izzy did good, but Alex Pereira is a finisher, so that's what you need to be.
You take that fight away, you take that Izzy fight away, maybe not, but with that Izzy fight in there, I got to give him on the top 5. He definitely deserved that position.
He is definitely in the top 5. I got number 5. I'm going to go with Aljamain Sterling, actually, because I thought Aljo, he had 2 victories in 2022. He won the belt in 2021 or 2020, one of those years. Took a long break because he had a neck injury, and people were giving this guy a bunch of shit. And then he came out and fucking handled Petr Yan. And it's not his fault TJ Dillashaw came into the fight injured. What I saw is that I think Aljo would have did the same shit even if TJ wasn't injured. So I think Aljo had one hell of a year and is going to have even more good years to come. He's going to be a very dominant 135 champion. So that's who I have at number 5.
Well, let me stop you right there, because my number 4 is Aljamain Sterling. Let me tell you how big this guy is for the weight class. I mean, cutting from 158, 160 down to 135. He looks huge. He looked 10 times bigger than fucking TJ Dillashaw did in their fight, and gave TJ no fucking, literally no answers. None. Not at all. And I know he hurt his arm, but you're talking about a guy who was a multi-time world champion previous to that. He also went in there and shut the lights out not shut the lights out, but shut the showdown against Petr Yan to shut up all the criticism that he was eating throughout that time frame. How do you not love the guy? How can you not put him on your top 5 fighters of the year? Yeah, what a great champion. I mean, I can't wait to see him fight. I can't wait to see him fight again.
My number 4.
Go ahead. Let me tell you. I was just going to say, let me see your number 4. Who you got?
Number 4 for me is the great Alexander Volkanovski. I thought this guy just stepped up as far as he could go. Put on I don't know if he fought Max this year. I think it was this year, but
he fought him the 3rd time this year. Yep.
Dude, first of all, his performance against the Korean Zombie was insane. His striking looked on another level.
Didn't he look like a 125er speed wise? Like, I mean, just
unbelievably fast, hit super hard. Korean Zombie could take a fucking punch. But what I really got impressed is what he did to Max Holloway in the 3rd fight. I did not expect him to be outstriking one of the greatest boxers in the sport.
Me and you were sitting on the couch at your house watching it, and I was just going, Matt, how can this even happen? How does this even happen?
Look, we're the biggest Max Holloway fans, but I got to give Volkanovski his credit, man. This guy's the real deal, and what he did is he earned
100%.
himself a chance to be a double champ. It's good, a tale for a different day, but that guy deserves all the credit of 2022. I think to see a champion grow even more is just very impressive to me.
It's hard enough to be a champion, but to see improvements as a champion, I mean, how do you not love the guy? I'm going to go into my number 3, and I'm going to tell you who this guy is, all right? This is a guy who just beat Bryce Mitchell, Ilia Topuria. How do you not love this motherfucker, man? He is a dog in there. He's willing to jump up to 55, 45. He does not care. He wants to fight, and he wants to fight the best. I love his last performance against Bryson Mitchell. Shut the show down. I mean, not only did he bust his face up standing up, he took him down and tapped him out. And this is also a well-known grappler, great on the ground, known for having only one of two twisters or one of three twisters in the UFC completely. I mean, gives him an arm triangle and shuts him down. I mean,
Yeah,
and then when you saw his interview afterwards, Bryson was so beat up, man. I mean, Ilya hits like a truck. I'm excited to see this guy in 2023.
Topuria is a scary guy, man, and real fans and real fighters know that this dude is going to be a problem. If you've been watching his career, he's been stopping guys that are really good already. Bryce Mitchell was just the one that shot him to the top here. Two undefeated guys, but Topuria, I would not want to be a guy in the top 10 having to face that guy next. I totally agree. I would like to see him step up in competition, but he did have a good 2022. And my number 3, jumping right into this, I got to go with remember the name Bilal Muhammad. That guy has been putting on great performances. He beat Vicente Luque in a rematch convincingly. And then he beat the undefeated Sean Brady. Not only beat him, stopped him and TKO'd him. This guy is so good at all aspects of fighting. I mean, his striking, it's probably not the greatest, but he's definitely getting better. But his wrestling, his ground control, and the fact that this guy wins and he goes and seeks the best training, he's going to be a problem at 170.
So I'm going to jump into my number 2 guy. And it was a toss up between Bilal and who I picked. But I mean, Bilal, hats off, man. Great run this year. I love seeing this guy win. He's well deserving, very humble. Love to see that guy get the W's. But my number 2 pick is Islam Makhachev. How do you not get this guy in the top 5? He's had such an incredible career. He's only lost one time in the UFC, and very early on when he was younger, and him and Khabib just got into the UFC. And the reason he's even on my top 5 as fighters this year, and I didn't have him as finishes or anything like that, but he's on my top 5 at number 2 because how do you not love him tapping out Charles Oliveira? What a great performance. And previously that, shutting down Bobby Green in less than a round, less than a couple minutes. I mean, and Dan Hooker, he takes him down, chokes him out. I mean, what more can he ask from this guy?
That's funny. That's why he didn't make my top 5, is because he did have a great finish against Oliveira, but the Bobby Green fight, that was a freebie because, I mean, you won the fight and you did shut it down.
A fight is a fight, and this guy's going in there finishing people in the first round. He went and finished Dan Hooker with a Kimura, finished Bobby Green with rear naked. I mean, goes in there and finishes Charles Ollie with a head and arm choke. Had a great year. You got to give him that as a top 5 fighter, and that's why he's on my number 2. I'm interested to see your number 2. Who do you got?
My number 2 is Sergey Pavlovich. That guy. Look, this guy has taken on top talent, and his 2 fights in 2022 are first-round KOs against Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa. How easy is that? Go in there and get performance of the night, knock these fucking guys out, and go right back home and train. This guy doesn't even get touched in his fights. It's unbelievable to see a guy who hits like that. I don't think people understand how much danger somebody like Francis Ngannou's in. Now, the good thing for Francis is he's implemented a lot of wrestling into his game plan, but we haven't even seen Pavlovich even fight a real fight yet. So I would like to see Pavlovich get into a war with somebody like Cyril Gane. But regardless, this guy hits like a truck, and he is definitely somebody who's going to have a fucking good 2023.
Sergey's on the rise, man, and I love to see that guy. I'd love to see him in some really tough battles to see what, where his steel is made. But I mean, how can you hate him? He's going in there, getting the job done and walking out. I mean, he just knocked out the heavyweight knockout king, which is Derek Lewis, knocked out the guy who knocked him out, which is Tai Tuivasa. I mean, how do you not love Sergey's performances there this year? And just, I hope nothing but the best for his future. Now I'm going to go into my number 1 guy. He was on your list as well, but I just think he had an outstanding year, pound for pound king on the rankings. Volkanovski. I mean, how do you not love Alexander the Great Volkanovski? This guy has put on some major ass whoopings this year. He's moving up to fight Islam Makhachev. I mean, he's cleaned out his division, and the reason he's on there is just because of the absolute beatdown and shutdown of Max Holloway, somebody who previously went in there and had a war with Yair Rodriguez, which was crazy enough. I mean, anytime he's not fighting Volko, he's shutting down Calvin Kattar. I mean, this guy,
he knows what he's going to do. He trained and outstruck Max, and Max is beating the fucking shit out of everybody else in that division. I would not want to be anybody below these guys. Only Yair like had a really good fight with Max. Other than that, the rest of these guys are getting fucking handled. So Volkanovski is, he's a whole level above Max right now. Maybe Max can step it up. We'll see. But Max is a whole nother level above the rest of the division. And then there's the rest of the division. So I don't know. What a crazy year for the 145ers. My number one was also on your list. And I think that this guy just really stepped up to the plate and backed up all the hype. I think Alex Pereira had definitely the best 2022 of all fighters. Look, went from unranked to knocking out the number 3.
Phenomenal year as well. That's a great number 1 pick.
Well, guys, that's our top 5 fights, top 5 finishes, and top 5 fighters of 2022. It's been one hell of a year. Thanks to all of our subscribers for tuning in time and time again to watch us. Hit us in the comments, like this video, subscribe to our channel. We want to know who you guys had and what you guys thought of the year. But anyway, yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for always tuning in.
Haters talking shit, yeah, they breath stank. Walk up in the club dripping like I'm fresh paint. I can see through the facade like an